Hello friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. Today I'm bringing you my June wrap-up. Now, June was the best reading month of the year so far, and also one of my personal best reading months ever. Not quite my best, but I think probably my second best reading month ever. I read 23 total books, and I am so happy. I am very much caught up and on track with my reading goal, and I read so many great things in June, so I'm so excited to share everything with you. I am gonna go back to ranking my books from worst to best in this video, so make sure you stick around to hear about the very best book that I read in June. But first, as always, we're gonna go through my monthly reading stats. So first things first, we have our little monthly overview. As I just mentioned, I have read 23 total books in June, and all of those books added up to a total of 6,744 pages. The most pages I've read in a single month all year, with the next highest being January, where I read 20 books and 6,200 pages. I didn't listen to too many audiobooks this month. I had a total of 37.41 hours of audiobooks that I listened to this month. My average rating for the month was 3.83, which is a little bit lower, and also I did DNF a couple books this month. They're not counted in the ratings. I don't just rate them 1 star, I just DNF them and don't rate them. I guess technically it'd be a little bit lower because, yeah, but 3.83. And then I still not caught up on tracking the books that I've acquired or books that I've got from the library or anything like that. It's kind of just too much for me to keep up with, honestly. Ignore those columns. And then I did reread 3 books, the Heartstopper graphic novels, and then I read 7 books that could be considered some form of own voices. And most of those were my Pride Month reads. I think I only read 1 non-queer book all month, and that's only because I had to read it for Read or Dare, which I participated in on Saturday. Super fun, but only 1 non-queer book all month. Next, we can take a look at the genres that I read this month. This was definitely a little bit more varied than it sometimes is, probably just because I read more books than usual, but I did read 3 books whose main genre is contemporary. I read 3 fantasy books, 4 graphic novels, 11 romance, of course, which was my biggest category, no one is surprised, 1 sci-fi, and a single thriller. One of the first thrillers I've read since January, so that was exciting. In terms of format, physical takes the crown. This month I read 11 physical books. I read 8 ebooks and then 4 on audio. In terms of audience, I read 15 adult books. I did read 1 middle grade book this month and 1 new adult book this month, and then I read 6 YA. In terms of author identity, there are no men in sight. I read 1 book by a genderqueer author, 21 books by female authors, and then 1 book by a transgender author. Looking at author status, I read 3 debut books this month, 12 books by authors who I had read before, and 8 books by authors that were new to me. And then finally for my ratings, I read 6 books that I gave 5 stars to. I read 3 books that I rated 4.5 stars, 2 books that I rated 4 stars, 5 books that I rated 3.5 stars, 1 book I rated 3 stars, 2 books I rated 2.5 stars, 1 book I rated 2 stars, and 1 book I rated 1.5 stars, and then I did DNF 2 books this month, which is definitely out of the ordinary, but I am happy that I did. Honestly, I wish I had DNF'd at least 3 or 4 this month. And that's pretty much it for my stats. I do want to point out though that I did finish June almost exactly halfway through my reading goal. I have read 101 books so far this year. My goal for this year is to read 200 books, so fingers crossed I can do it. I'm definitely making good progress, obviously. Super excited about that and very proud of myself. And yeah, I think that's all for my stats, so let's just get into the books. I'll try and go through this kind of quickly so we're not here all day, but I am going to be ranking them, like I said, from worst to best. So we're gonna, of course, start with the books that I DNF'd this month. Probably the very worst book that I read this month was Boyfriend Goals by Riley Hart. I did end up DNFing this book at only 16% because I just could not get into the writing. I thought the writing and the characterizations were so bad and cringy. I just could not stand to read any farther than the 16% mark. This is a male-male Kindle Unlimited romance following Milo and Gideon. Milo inherits this property from his grandmother. She owned a bookstore and then she rented out the space next door to a tattoo studio. Gideon is the person that runs the tattoo studio, and in his grandma's will, Milo's grandma was like, you need to let Gideon stay in this tattoo shop. So Milo was like, okay, and he goes and he meets Gideon and they fall in love. I originally was reading this because I needed a book for the Prideathon, and I was gonna read it for the prompt that's like a neurodivergent queer character. Milo is supposed to have autism, but I did not think that it was done very well. I'm not like an Own Voices reviewer. I don't know that Riley Hart is an Own Voices writer. Who knows? I don't know. But I just found characterizations to be kind of weird and painful, and they didn't feel right to me, so I just didn't want to keep reading this book, and I didn't really like it anyway. I didn't like where it was going, so I gave this one a pass. The next book I DNF'd in June was Bat Boy by Christina Lee. This is another Male Kindle Unlimited romance, and it follows Brady and Kellen. Brady is like a baseball player on this college team, and Kellen is the coach's son in Bat Boy, and Brady has always kind of like had a little bit of a crush on Kellen, but he's kind of like figuring out his sexuality. He's always identified as straight, but he's like trying to deal with his feelings for Kellen, and they kind of strike up like a friendship and a little bit of like a flirtation romance thing. I DNF'd this book at 66% because it was just so painful. The characters just acted, especially Brady, really, really young, and there were just some like sexual encounters that were so stupid. I just was not into this book at all. I thought it was just a little bit juvenile for the genre and what it was trying to do, and I was not into it, so I ended up DNFing it. Also, a little bit of a shout out, follow me on Goodreads if you want a gem of a review like this one that I did for Bat Boy. I think I'm funny, you know, like that's all that matters, is if I think I'm funny and I entertain myself. So the worst book that I actually finished in June was Sail Be 9 by Lucy Lennox. This is a book that I wish I had DNF'd. It is another Male Kindle Unlimited romance. This one follows Isaac and Cooper. Isaac is like a DIY YouTuber, and he's approached by this company, and they're like, hey, do you know anybody that's gay, because we're trying to do like a Pride Month sponsorship? And Isaac is like, well, I know one gay person. So him and his one gay friend, or it's like his brother's gay friend or something, pretend to be in a relationship to get this YouTube sponsorship money. Perhaps the dumbest premise ever, but I was like, oh, like forced proximity, only one bed, fake dating, discovered sexuality, like it's got some fun tropes in it, maybe it'll be good. No, it was not good. I gave this 1.5 stars because this book was really dumb. It was written very badly. The dialogue was stilted and awkward, and there was no chemistry whatsoever in the relationship. And we're led to believe that like the main character, Isaac, is perhaps ace, gray ace, somewhere on the scale. Cooper is like the first person he's like really been attracted to, but we don't really get that. Like, we're told that, but it's not shown or believable. I don't know. They didn't even do the ace rep right. I appreciated the attempt, but wasn't a huge fan of this book. Very much should have DNF'd it. Next worst book is the very last book that I finished in June, so ended with a fizzle. But that was Endangered Species by Only James. As you know, I'm a big fan of Only James. I like a lot of her other series, particularly her Necessary Evil series, and I also really like the Elite Protection, I never can remember the full title. The Bodyguard series. I like that one too. This one is a like series of companion books about male romances in prison. Yeah, it's stupid. But actually no buts. This book was just stupid. Like, period. That's all this book was stupid. The premise of this book is that it's like a stepbrothers romance where they're reunited in prison. So Cyrus has been in prison for like almost 20 years because he was accused of killing his father by his crazy stepmother. His stepbrother, Nicky, apparently like testified against him in court, so he's always felt guilty about sending his stepbrother to jail and has always been like trying to research and get him out of it. And in doing that, he's discovered this like conspiracy surrounding the prison industrial complex where like this particular judge that sentenced Cyrus has wrongfully sentenced tons of people just so they can have prison labor. Which I appreciate the attempt to tackle the prison industrial complex and explore the problems with it, but a smutty male romance book perhaps is not the best place to do that. Anyway, for the fact that this is like a stepbrother romance, particularly when they like were stepbrothers, they were like 6 and 17, 18. This book was surprisingly not taboo at all. There was no of the like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. That's like the reason that you write a stepbrother romance. So I'm not really sure what the point of that was. And also they literally screw each other the very first night they meet. And it's like, no build up. We haven't seen each other in 20 years. Talk about the opposite of a slow burn. And then we're just like immediately thrown into like they're in love with each other, will die for one another. Don't get me wrong, like it's fun to read like a smutty book sometimes that is not slow burn, and I kind of was looking for something that's not slow burn, but I need a little bit of like relationship development, you know, and like some logical reason why we are at the stage and why the characters feel the way they do about one another. This got 2 stars for me. I mean, It was like fun, I guess, for what it was, but I was really disappointed that it did not give us taboo, and I was really upset that there was no relationship development whatsoever, no payoff. Like, the whole conflict of the book is just supposed to be the prison industrial complex thing, which is just silly in this context. So this book didn't work for me. Probably should have DNF'd this one as well. All right, now we're finally moving out of the smutty male romance badness that happened in June, but people are probably going to be mad that I put this book next on my list. And that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. We're reading the Greenbone Saga for Fan Series book club right now, and this first book just didn't work for me. I didn't like it very much. So in this story, we're following the Cole family. The Cole family is the head of KCON in this fantasy world. It's like Asian inspired, I believe. The Cole family are like the leaders of KCON, and they all are like green bone warriors, which means they can harness the power of Jade, like the gemstone, to like become superhuman, to like have powers. There are 3 Call siblings that we're following: Lon, Hilo, and Shay. Lon is like the figurehead, like the emperor. I don't know what his title is, I don't remember, but he's like the president. Hilo is like his general, his like military strong arm guy. And then Shay is their sister, who originally like wanted to get away from everything. She didn't want to wear jade, she didn't want to be a warrior, but now she's kind of come back because the life that she was trying to build for herself kind of crumbled, and she doesn't really want to be involved in the family politics, but she kind of gets pulled back into it. Shay's perspective was definitely my favorite. I liked Lon all right. I liked Andon, who's their cousin, who we also get POVs from. I hated Hilo. I thought he was a jerk. There are so many Hilo stands out there, and I just can't figure out why. He's just so like hard-headed, and he's very rude to his girlfriend in a way that feels icky to me. I didn't like it. I don't know. But overall, I just wasn't vibing with this book. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars because I did think like objectively it's a good book, and if you're into like fantasy and this kind of thing, and if you have a connection to the characters, I think you would really like it. Most people really like it. I just didn't really love any of the characters. I found the world building to be very slow and tedious. The political like conflict that was going on I thought was really tedious as well. I rounded down to a 2-star on Goodreads, so it was not a very strong 2.5 star. If you want to hear like all of my thoughts, as well as thoughts of people that actually liked the book, definitely rewatch our Fan Series live show. I don't know, I definitely have the unpopular opinion, but I was not a fan of this one. The next set of books are really stupid, and I feel kind of bad ranking them higher than Jade City. I just personally enjoyed them more than I enjoyed reading Jade City, so I'm ranking them above. And that is the first like 2.5 books in the Mismatched Mates series by Elliot Grayson. So the first book is called The Alpha's Warlock, and it is a male werewolf and warlock romance. It follows Nate and Ian. Nate is like cursed by this, I don't remember. He's cursed, and basically he's a warlock, and this curse needs somebody to like bond with him to keep his magic, or else his magic will just like continually drain out of him until he's dead. Thus enters Ian. Ian is like kind of like a family childhood acquaintance friend. He's an unbonded alpha, so he agrees to bond with Nate to help him not die. They kind of like hate each other at first. It's very much like a grumpy sunshine kind of dynamic, but come to find out, Ian has been in love with Nate forever, and Nate develops feelings along the way, of course, and it's their romance, and it's really cute and fun. I gave this first book like a light 4-star. Like, it was just a fun time. It wasn't like super developed, like a new favorite or anything, but it was pretty good. The second book is called Captive Mate. I didn't like this one nearly as much. I think I gave this one like 2.5 stars actually, because I didn't really love the characters. Basically, it follows Ian's brother, Matthew, who is like the leader of their pack. He has been like brainwashed by this rival pack, and while he's being brainwashed, he was put under this love spell by Eric, who is a warlock and shifter that this rival pack was holding hostage for some reason. And it's that whole trope where like once the love spell comes off, he doesn't feel any different. He doesn't believe that they actually took the love spell off because he's been in love with him all along. I like that trope too. Like, that's a fun time. Eric as a character was so prickly and just honestly like a bad dude for most of the story. Like, I guess he redeemed himself in the end, but throughout, his actions and the way he treated everyone was just gross. I'm like, dude, you suck. Why am I supposed to be rooting for you? I don't know. So that's the main reason why I didn't love this one. And then the third book is like 2.5. It's like a little novella. It's called A Very Armitage Christmas. Matthew and Ian's last name is Armitage. They're the Armitage werewolf pack. But this is basically just like a stupid Christmas story where Eric is trying to do something, like grow a garden or something. And he casts this spell that like is supposed to bring things back to life, meaning like plants and trees, but he actually like brings back to life all these people that they killed in this rival werewolf pack. So there's all these like zombies running around and they have to figure out how to put the zombies back to rest and save Christmas. It was really dumb. I gave it 3 stars. It was a fun time, but it was stupid. Next on my list is A Little Light Mischief by Cat Sebastian. This is a female-female Regency romance, and it is a novella, so it's pretty short. It is a romance between Molly and Alice. Molly is a lady's maid, and she starts to fall for her boss's friend that's staying at their house. Alice is also pretty curious about Molly. She thinks maybe like something weird or improprietary is going on, so she follows her from work one day and learns that she has like a secret daughter, and she thought she was like going to meet up with a man or something. But anyway, this kind of like brings them together. But then somebody from Alice's past shows up and is trying to cause a ruckus, and so Molly helps her like cause a little bit of mischief, and they save the day and fall in love along the way. This was really cute. It was a little bit too short for me to be like super invested in and to like really truly love, but I did like it a lot for what it was, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. Alright, next on my list is the one non-queer book that I read all month, and that was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is a mystery thriller following our main character, Rowan. Rowan needs a new job, so she's just browsing around on the internet when she sees this listing to be somebody's nanny. It seems a little bit too good to be true because they're offering like $55,000 a year, well, pounds because it's in the UK. And it's like live-in, and I don't know. It sounds too good to be true, but she really wants it, so she decides to apply, ends up getting the job, but little does she know she is gotten a lot more than she bargained for. This house that these people live in is a smart house. Everything is connected to this weird app. It's very difficult to use. Strange things happen in the night. Parents are kind of absent. They leave like Rowan with their kids right away the very first night, and she is like, what the hell did I get myself into? One of the girls is frankly pretty creepy and just trying to absolutely ruin Rowan's chances, to get her in trouble, to freak her out basically. And Rowan is very much freaked out. She thinks she hears like footsteps in the attic. There's a weird creepy door in her room. The house just like blasts light and music every once in a while to freak her out. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on at this house. It's like an old Scottish house on the moors, and it has a sordid history as well. The creepy vibes were definitely strong in this one. I really liked that aspect. I liked the like haunted house, is it not paranormal kind of thing. I tend to enjoy that in thrillers, so I did really like that here. I also thought Rowan was a pretty like compelling character, and I liked the kids in this book. Overall, it was like a solid mystery thriller. I don't really have lots of negative things to say other than I thought it was a little bit slow, just in terms of like, I didn't really have a problem putting it down and then picking it back up later. It wasn't like that I wanted to just sit and absorb it all in one sitting, which I really would like to feel with a really good thriller. So this one just wasn't that for me. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I really liked it. Like I said, I thought it was solid, but it was just nothing to write home about. I've definitely read like a lot better thrillers. Next on my list is a male rom-com, and that is Love, Hate, and Clickbait by Liz Bowery. This follows our main characters, Tom and Clay. Tom is like a political advisor, and Clay is like the tech guy at the political office. They hate each other, and they are getting into a heated argument one day in the office when like a journalist happens to see and thinks that they are actually making out. And they take pictures, make this article about it, and everyone, it's kind of being sensationalized. They're both rightfully like pissed about this, but their boss, who is this politician who's planning to run for president, has been getting some flack in the media about not having any LGBTQIA plus members of her staff. So she really wants Clay and Tom to play into this narrative and keep it up to make her look good. She like offers them a raise, threatens them. They agree. Of course, they start to spend more time with each other. They really hate each other at first, but it eventually blossoms into a friendship and then something more. This on paper sounds like everything I would really love in a rom-com like this, but it didn't quite deliver like I wanted it to. For one thing, the enemies to lovers trope in this one is really strong, and almost too strong, because the reason Clay and Tom hated one another is that they hated one another's personalities. Like Tom just hated Clay, thought he was so annoying and stupid, and Clay thought Tom was a dick because he was. So I didn't really like that they just fundamentally hated each other for their personalities. I thought that was a little bit too unbelievable to like come back from. Like, I understand spending more time getting to know someone, realizing that your perceptions of them were incorrect, but it's just hard for me to understand how they could like hate one another's personalities and then fall in love. By the end though, I was having a good time and I did really like their romance and I thought it was really cute, but in the beginning, Not so much. So for that reason, this one got a 3.5 star from me. Next on my list is Home Field Advantage by Dahlia Adler. This is a YA queer contemporary book following head cheerleader Amber and Jack, who is a girl that becomes the quarterback of the football team, and their subsequent romance with one another. Now, this town is very conservative and stuck in their ways, and their previous quarterback actually died in a car accident the year before, so they're really grieving his loss, which makes it even more difficult when Jack enters, and 1 is a girl and 2 is taking the spot of this beloved quarterback. So a lot of people in the school are intent on making Jack feel unwelcome, ruining her chances, icing her out, all of that stuff. Amber is a junior and she's on the cheerleading team and she wants to be captain next year. So she really wants everyone to like her and vote for her as captain. So she really feels this pressure to join in and make Jack's life a living hell as well. But Amber is very attracted to Jack and really likes her and does not want to ruin her life. But yeah, this book was really cute. I had a little bit of issue. I used to be a cheerleader in high school and college. Just some of Amber's characterizations and the way cheerleading was described in this book felt a little off to me. Sometimes I just think stuff like that's cringy if the proper phrasing and words for things aren't used or aren't used correctly. I don't know. And just the way that Amber would do cheers randomly by herself alone with Jack, very weird. I don't know a single cheerleader that would do that. I think it was just supposed to show that she was a very bubbly and confident person, but I don't know. I thought that was really weird. I mean, overall for what this was, it was really cute and fun, and I really liked the romance. I thought it was a good time. Nothing really super negative to say, just thought some things were cringy. So I gave this one a 3.5 star as well. Next on my list is Pet by Kwake Meze. This is a YA fantasy book following our main character, Jam, who is a transgender girl who lives in the city called Lucille in this world where monsters have been eradicated. And monsters, as defined in this world, are people who do bad things like murderers, P-words, R-words, those kinds of people apparently have been eradicated from this world. But Jam's mother is an artist. One day when Jam is messing around in her studio, she accidentally gets blood on her mother's latest painting, which causes the creature in her mother's painting to come to life. And this creature is yo, Jam, there are still monsters in this world, and one is in your best friend's house. And so Jam doesn't believe them at first, but they go on this kind of mystery and they rope in her best friend Redemption, who the monster says is in his house, to try and solve this mystery. This book was super good. It was so unique and just a wonderful concept, and it was also just emotionally taxing, man, and very touching and poignant. I really liked it a lot. The writing in it is so good. I loved Jam and Redemption's characters, especially their friendship. I just loved seeing a male-female friendship that wasn't anything more than that, especially in a YA when they're a little bit older and in high school and things. I just thought it was very pure. I liked their relationship a lot. And just the uniqueness of this read and the message that it had, I really, really loved it. I thought it was super well done. There was a little bit of something missing for me, and I think maybe just because it's such a short book. I did give it 4 stars, but overall I would highly, highly recommend it. Definitely has great rep, really well written, super interesting, unique concept, and I really liked it. Next on my list is I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is a YA contemporary with a little bit of a sapphic romance in it. In it, we're following our main character, Chloe, who gets a letter from Shara Wheeler the day after Shara Wheeler kisses her and then runs away. It basically is a clue to where she's gone. Chloe is sure that Shara wants her to find her, and so she teams up with Shara's boyfriend as well as Shara's next door neighbor, who she also kissed and ditched and left letters for, and they're trying to add up all these clues, figure out what happened to Shara. Chloe says her motivation is to get Shara back before graduation because Shara is her only competition for valedictorian, and Chloe wants to win fair and square. As you can probably tell from the description, this book was very similar to Paper Towns by John Green, except not with a shitty ending. And I really didn't like Paper Towns by John Green, so the fact that this was the same concept was very interesting to me, and I'm not sure it quite worked. This is definitely my least favorite Casey McQuiston that I have read so far. I think one of the reasons why is because it is YA. I like a good YA every once in a while, but I just haven't been that into them recently, and this one just felt very YA. I will give it, though, that Casey McQuiston's writing style works for me so well. I think it's really funny. I really like it. So compulsively readable, but I feel like every word is chosen with care and just makes the story richer. And I really like her characters and our friend groups. I think everyone really shone from the page. The main character, Chloe, definitely annoyed me quite a bit though, as did Shara. The fact that the main couple was just okay for me probably drug this down a little bit, but I still gave this 4 stars. I had a great time reading it. I thought it was fun. It just wasn't on par with Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Less Stop, you know? All right, I took a break for some fajitas because I was hungry and tired of talking, but I am back. And I have like 9 books left to talk about, so let's just power through them. Next book on my list is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. This is a graphic novel memoir about Maya's life growing up and discovering gender and identity and just struggling being a queer person in life. This was beautifully written, beautifully drawn. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it a full 5 stars. Thought it was very impactful, and I feel like it's one of those books that everyone could get something out of. Maya seems like a really cool person. It's always just interesting to me to hear someone's journey with queerness and becoming who they are, and I really loved this book. I thought it was really well done, and I would 100% recommend it. It is where it is on the list just because I like reading fiction the most. I'd like to read nonfiction every once in a while, and I did really enjoy this. Don't get me wrong, like full 5 stars, it was great, but I just like some of my fiction reads a little bit more. And that leads me into the next book on my list, which is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. Can't believe it took me so long to read this book. It's been out since February. Ashley Herring Blake is one of my favorite authors, and she definitely did not disappoint me with this latest installment in her repertoire. This was her first adult romance, and it really like knocked the ball out of the park. I really loved it. In this book, we're following our main character, Delilah. Delilah has like sworn off her hometown. She never wants to go back. Her biological parents are gone, and all that she has left is her stepmother and her stepsister, who she's been estranged from for quite a while. But then when they call her up and ask her to photograph her stepsister Astrid's wedding, Delilah reluctantly agrees because they're offering to pay her quite a lot of money. So she finds herself back in her hometown for a couple weeks, and there she reconnects with Claire, who is actually one of Astrid's best friends. Claire doesn't recognize Delilah at first and starts to hit on her in a bar, and Delilah is like, I'm kind of into this, but she's also like knows in the back of her head that it'll piss Astrid off, so another reason why she's into it. Claire quickly realizes who Delilah is, but they keep being thrown together at all of these events for Astrid's wedding, and they start to form like a friendship and a flirtation and something a little bit more. And there's an interesting dynamic in this because Claire is a single mom, and her interactions with her daughter are so sweet. I loved that aspect of this book, and I really loved just seeing Delilah grow and flourish in this relationship. And I also really love like the cast of characters in this book. Astrid and all of her friends are so funny, and I can't wait for their books. Iris is Claire and Astrid's like 3rd friend. She was probably my favorite character in this whole book. I thought she was hilarious, and I cannot wait for her romance. I think hers comes out at the beginning of next year, but it's gonna be so good. I will say this book was a little bit slower than I wanted it to be, and it took me a little bit to like get hooked into it. Overall though, it was a great story. I really loved it, and I gave it a 4.5 star. Next on my list is A Marvelous Light by Freya Marksey. This is a male fantasy romance. I definitely would recommend this book to anyone who loves The House in the Cerulean Sea. It has very similar vibes. I really loved this book. This book follows Robin and Edwin. Robin is not a magical guy, but he is thrown in due to like a confusion in paperwork to this role as a like magical liaison. He's supposed to be the go-between between like the prime minister and the magical world and give him reports. I don't know if it's a prime minister, it's somebody in government, and supposed to like just keep everybody on an even footing. Robin, though, has no idea that magic exists until his first day on the job, when Edwin, who is supposed to be his correspondent on the magical side, enters his office and he's like, who the hell are you? Why are you here? Shows him that magic is real. This is very much like a grumpy sunshine dynamic. Robin is very like sunshiny and positive, whereas Edwin is very like cold and closed off at first, but he is kind of roped into making sure Robin is all right, because as Robin is leaving his office on the first day, he is accosted by these magical guys who assault him and put this curse on him, all for the purpose of finding this magical contract that the person that was in Robin's post last had possession of, and this contract is supposed to like help them control all the magic in the world or something. Edwin is like, I can't just leave Robin like this. So he takes him to his home where he has this big library, and they're like researching how to get the curse off while also like trying to figure out the mystery of this last contract. This book was super sweet. I fell in love with both Robin and Edwin. It almost kind of has too like a dreary kind of vibe to it. Like Edwin is kind of Draco-esque, and he's like described as looking like him a little bit as well, like very pale and like blonde hair, and you know how I feel about that, so I was into that. But basically this book was just a lot of fun. Like, I really liked the magic system. I really liked the romance. I thought it was great. It was very slow burn and like a little bit, like a tad bit too slow, but it was good. This book, a little bit steamy. There's a couple steamy scenes in here, which I was feeling. I was into it. They were well written. I liked them a lot. It had a lot of elements I love. I really enjoyed this one, and I gave it a 4.5 star. just because it was a little bit too slow. Next on my list, I'm going to put The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This is a female-female Regency romance. I loved this book so much. It was so good. In this story, we're following Lucy and Catherine. Lucy is a young girl whose father recently passed, and she's taking this really hard because she had a good relationship with her father, but also because she worked directly under him as an astronomer, and at the end she was honestly doing a lot of the work, but his name was on it, so no one really knows that she is a very talented and successful astronomer. She's determined to prove herself on her own though, and the perfect opportunity comes when this woman named Catherine, who is the wife of a frequent correspondent of her father's, writes her father a letter and says that she has this work that needs to be translated and asks if they know anyone who might be able to translate it. Lucy is like, I can do that. And instead of just like writing her letter back, she goes and shows up at Catherine's house to demand that Catherine let her do it. It doesn't take much to convince Catherine, so she allows Lucy to stay in her home while she is working on this translation. Lucy shows her the wonderful world of lesbianism. No, but this romance was so sweet, and I love how it built up from like acquaintances to friends to lovers. It was a very nice progression, and it was definitely spicy. I loved that. I also really liked the concept of like Lucy trying to prove herself in this world that's very much a man's world, and Catherine just was like her biggest supporter, and in turn Lucy was Catherine's biggest supporter as well, like pushing her and encouraging her to do things that she didn't even like think possible of herself. Oh, I loved it. Only a romance between two women could be this beautiful and this supportive and this healthy. I loved it so much. It was so good. If you like Regency or if you like queer romances, I would 100% recommend. I loved this one. I think I originally gave it 4.5 stars, but it's a 5-star book. It was really good. And then next on my list, I of course have to put my Heartstopper reread. So I reread volume 1 a couple months ago, and I finally got around this month to rereading volume 2, 3, and 4. I read all of these in that 24-hour reading vlog, so definitely check that out once it's out. But I feel like I don't really have to tell you what these books are about. They're basically a coming-of-age YA story between Nick and Charlie, and it's their romance and just like dealing with school and friends and first love and romance, and it's just so sweet and precious and joyful, and it just makes me so happy. I was so glad I got to reread all of them. They are all a full 5 stars. I really have nothing negative to say about them, except that I like the TV show better? I don't know. I just think the TV show was such a great medium to adapt these stories. I can't wait for the next seasons. I think they did such a great job. The casting was so good. I just love everything about the books, and I love everything about the TV show, and it's just a perfect world, and I wish I could live in it. Honestly, I love it so much. All right, down to my final 2. My almost favorite book of the month was King of the Dragonflies by Kacen Callender. This is a hard-hitting queer middle grade story, and it was so good. This book rocked my shit. I was sobbing uncontrollably. I haven't cried over a book in so long, and this one was just so freaking good. It was so good. In this book, we're following our main character, King. King is going through a really hard time because his brother Khalid recently passed away, and King is really struggling with missing Khalid, but he is also struggling with something that Khalid said to him pretty soon before he died. So King had this friend named Sandy, and Sandy confided in King that he's gay, and King's brother Khalid overheard this conversation, and he told King not to be friends with Sandy any longer because King surely wouldn't want other people thinking he was gay as well. Considering that King thinks he might be gay, this is very difficult thing to live with, especially right after his brother dies. So he's dealing not only with like trying to come to terms with his own identity, but fighting it because he doesn't want to disappoint his late brother. So this is a very difficult read, and oh my god, the ending, it's so like bittersweet and just hurt my heart, but like I felt so hopeful at the same time. This is such a good book. It's so freaking good. Oh my god, it's so good. Please read this book if you haven't already. It is absolutely excellent. 5 out of 5 stars. And then finally, my favorite book of the month was Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. This book was just like perfection. I loved it so much. I don't even know why. This is a sci-fi space opera with a male-male romance included, and it was just so lovely and engaging. I loved it so much. In it, we're following our main characters, Kim and Janan, and they are arranged to be married in this political alliance. But these two silly boys cannot talk to one another to save their goddamn lives. So their whole relationship, especially at the beginning, is like a big misunderstanding. Janan is very cold towards Kim. It's kind of like a grumpy sunshine dynamic. Kim's pretty like outgoing and bubbly and happy, and he just like wants to make the best of the situation, where Janin is like very reserved and keeps to himself. In the beginning, Kiam interprets this as Janin being hung up on his previous husband who recently died, but come to find out that's not the case. And actually, Janin later on in the book is accused of murdering his husband, and so they're embroiled in this mystery of like what happened to Janin's previous husband. And there's this like impending restructuring of the treaty between Kiam and Janin's nations that's kind of looming in the background, and all of this has to be like resolved because it's showing tension, like, but the treaty needs to be in place for the world to be stable. There's some big like consequences for things like not going right in this world. So there's like kind of like an sense of pending doom, which really makes this very compulsively readable, but also like the romance itself is so good. It's slow burn in like the best possible way because you can tell that both characters are pining so hard for each other the whole time, which is like my favorite. It's so good. When they finally talk to each other, oh my god, it's the best. Because you're just waiting the whole book like screaming at them like, yo, talk to each other, you guys are so fucking annoying. I love these characters so much too. Like, they are the type of characters that just like have become real to me. Janin is just like the sweetest little guy. I just want to give him a hug. He's just been beaten the heck down, but he doesn't deserve it because he's the best. And Kiam shows him that he's the best, and Kiam is also the best. And I love this book so much. This was definitely like 6 out of 5 stars. A new favorite for sure. I loved it so much. I want to reread it. Alright, and that is all of the books I read in June. This was definitely a super great reading month for me. Not only did I read 23 books, I found some new favorites and reread some old favorites. Overall, great reading month, super happy about it. And I am also super happy about you watching this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed it, definitely give me a thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. You can also follow me on Instagram, Goodreads, TikTok, have everything linked below for you. And before you go, tell me in the comments what the best book you read in June was. I would very much love to know. I believe that is all for today. So thank you again for being here and for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.